Everybody, welcome back. It's good to have a great crowd here today, and for a second installment of the Tzurba Mirabanan series. And today we have really good food here. Some unbelievable Moroccan cholent, okay, made by our very own Adam Ohayon. Azak Baruch Adam. This is he's taking orders. You can text on the on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube video.
We price matched all of them.
Oh, okay. We're not going to talk about last week. Whatever. It was my fault. I didn't, you didn't prep enough time. You need preparation for these things. A good cholent needs to be sitting and cooking for a long time. But it's great to have everybody here, and we're continuing our discussion, our halachic discussion on Netilat Yadayim. Today we're going to get very Kabbalistic. That's what most of the class today we're going to be speaking about the concept of Ruach Ra'ah, an evil spirit, which plays a very big role in Hilachot Netilat Yadayim Baboker. Again, for those of you joining for the first time, we are doing the Tzurba Mirabanan series from the Sfarim that look like this, a wonderful set of publications that take you really in depth for halachot translated sources, and we are learning volume 8, which is the first volume from the Orach Haim Kadosh. Not the Orach Haim, sorry. I got to see how come because tonight is the Hilula of the Orach Haim Kadosh. That's why I came out. But the first volume of Sefer Orach Haim of Shulchan Aruch. But yes, tonight is the Hilula of the Orach Haim Kadosh. Amen. So last week we looked at, I guess, the motions. We started off with Modani and the procedure and protocol of washing our hands in the morning. We learned at the different opinions between the Rashba and the Rosh why we wash our hands in the morning, and do we need to do it before every tefillah or not? And halacha, really, we do it before shaharit, but we should wash our hands with a bracha, but we should be washing our hands before every single tefillah. And today, we're going to look at the concept of 3 times. 3 times washing your hands in the morning is to remove this Ruach Ra'ah. So without further ado, we're just going to get into it. If you're following with us online or here in person, we're on page number 35. Where source number 16 opens up with a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. The Gemara is condensed; it's not the entire Gemara, but we will read what they have. Maybe I have here the English translation of the whole Gemara. But the Gemara says, "Amar Rabbi Muna mishum Rabbi Yehuda, yad la'ayin tikatzet, a hand that touches the eye shall be cut off. Yad lachotem tikatzet, and a hand that touches the nose should be cut off. Yad legigit tikatzet. There is a hand that touches. This is the member, the male member should be cut off. The Gemara actually in between talks about touching the ear, touching a wound, touching a whole bunch of things. All these things should be cut off. Tanya was learned. We learned in a Braita. Rabbi Natan Omer, bat chorin hizu. She is a liberated entity. Umakpedet ad sheyirchotz yadav gimel pe'amim. And she does not leave. She's makpid, not to leave. This Ruach Ra'ah does not leave until one washes their hands 3 times. Okay, this is the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. So over here, the Ben Ish Chai in his Sefer Benayahu Ben Yoyada, one Ben Yoyada, one Benayahu, has a few hidushim. For one, why the concept of 3? So he says there are many klipot. Klipot are negative forces that can bring harm, God forbid, or damage to a person. And the tumah on the Yadayim is in a combination of the lowest 3 klipot, which is referenced in the Torah as Ruach Se'ara, number 1, Anan Gadol, and Esh Mitlakachat. I'm not going to pretend to explain that I know what this means, but these are 3 terms in the Torah that are referencing 3 negative klipot. And therefore, we need to wash our hands 3 times to get rid of this Ruach Ra'ah. He also says that there are 3 parts to the finger. Every finger has three parts: the one closest to the palm, the middle part, and the tip of the finger. Okay, and every time you wash your hand, the Ruach Ra'ah moves further away from the hand until it departs the finger, and that's when it finally escapes. In fact, that is the meaning. What he says in Benayahu, the meaning of Bat Horin. Bat Horin literally translated as she's liberated. Someone who's Bat Horin, she's free. But Chor can also mean a hole or a crevice. And he says the Ruach Ra'ah dwells in the crevices of the hand, which are in between the fingers. These are like the holes of the hand. That's where the Ruach Ra'ah is. And our job is to remove that this Ruach Ra'ah by washing three times. And the Chida in Sefer Petach Einaim also says, and when it says the eye, it's not just inside of the eye, but also on the outside of the eye. Also, a person should not be touching before washing his hands. Okay, so this is the source. This is the Gemara. This is the Talmud, where we first see this concept of Ruach Ra'ah. Comes the Shulchan Aruch in source 17, and he codifies it. And the source gives five halachot that have to do with this. Some of it very simple, and then he goes on. So in halacha aleph, in Siman Dalet, he says, Yechat yadav yivarech al netilat yadayim. Person should wash his hands in the morning and say al netilat yadayim. Yedakdek la'arot alehen mayim gimel pa'amim. Here in halacha bet, he says that a person should be meticulous to wash 3 times. Leha'avir ruach ra'ah sheshora alehen. To remove this bad spirit that is resting upon the hands. With that, lo yiga, or top page 36, lo yiga biyado kodem netila lepeh. A person should not touch his hand before with his mouth, or touch his mouth with his hand. Sorry, velo lachotem, or his nose, velo leoznaim, or his ears, velo le'enayim. All these things a person should not do without washing your hands. Here in Vav, he says, "En sarich revi'it lenetilat yadayim litfilah." Person does not need a revi'it for netilat yadayim for tfilah in the morning. However, tov le'akpid benetilat yadayim shachrit bechol advarim hame'akavim benetilat yadayim leseudah. However, it is okay and very preferable to the same way you wash your hands in for bread, which is with a lot of water and a kali, you should do in the morning as well. Says the Ramam, mihu eno me'akev. It does not really hold back your obligation. Lo kli v'lo koach gavra. You don't need the kli and the koach gavra. Koach gavra is the human force. You actually have to take the water and pour it. That's koach gavra. Ushad dvarim aposlim benetilat seudah. Other things that might invalidate your netilah for a meal does not invalidate for the waking up in the morning, the waking up in the morning. However, it is good to be makpid. The Arizal here, question. Yeah.
Wow. So that's so was that the morning?
That's the morning one. That's the reference one for the morning. Yes.
Not another one.
No, especially based on how we explained the Rosh to mean that's with regard to tefillah. Now there was our opinion that we said last week that it could be that you require two washings. One, when you come out of the bath, wake up in the morning, right? You go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. If it 3 times, that would remove your Ruach Ra'ah. And then you wash again with before tefillah. And you would say al netilat yadayim to fulfill the opinion of the Rosh that you're saying the bracha before the tefillah. But here, so you said you don't need a revi, it just needs to be washing. You just have to have some sort of water. So it seems to imply that water would be enough to get rid of the Ruach Ra'ah. What we know for sure is that when you're washing for a meal, you must have a revi'it. Your cup must hold a revi'it, and each pour must be a revi'it. That's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch very blatantly. But it's not brought down here. In fact, he says it's not required. The washing your hands for your meal, which maybe one day we'll get to, requires a washing of the complete hand, and you cannot do that without at least a minimum of a revi'it.
So it could be that it sounds like even the faucet, because you don't need to glue up the cover, like you don't need the cover. So like a faucet might, but the other work.
Yeah, the faucet does work. Yes, a faucet does work. Yeah, we'll look at the Mishnah Berurah later below. Yeah.
Is the inyan of the Ruach Ra'ah, is it tied to like the nighttime, or is it tied to the fact that you're sleeping?
So
Nothing will be if you have a nap.
okay, so we're gonna look when we finish this page. There's a further iyun on page 51, which is fascinating. It's a few pages long. I think what we'll do is I want everybody to learn it and read it. I'll just read it without maybe some questions because there's a few pages long, and there it goes in depth on where the Ruach Ra'ah comes from. But it is a lot from the fact that a part of us dies on every time we go to sleep, and then when our neshama comes back, we have this Ruach Ra'ah sitting on our hands. I was saying that the Arizal writes that after a person washes his hands 3 times in the morning, and it's good to rub the hands together. That's where he says it's a good thing to do. And a person, like washing for bread, should raise his hands upwards. Similarly, that's what a person should do. The Kaf HaChaim writes, if you touch someone else's hands after you wash your hands, and then you have to wash someone that didn't wash their hands yet. You would have to wash your hands again. Okay, so your spouse getting up in the morning, give her a high five or something like that. She didn't wash her hands yet. You have to wash your hands again.
Even if your hands are dry.
Even if your hands are dry, yes, because of the Ruach Ra'ah issue here. So bracha would be a good question. I'd probably say if you've already said a bracha, then probably say safek brachot la'akil. You wouldn't say a blessing here. But again, we learned last week that many people say it's best to hold off the bracha till you wash again closer to shachrit if you do so. The Kaf HaChaim also writes in this halakha how he writes a little mini essay on how it's so important to make sure that our children are washing their hands in the morning. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are not careful with this. They just let their kids get up and they go downstairs. But we should make sure that they wash Netilat Yadayim. I remember the mohel who performed the Brit Milah for my first son, Rabbi Kuba Yov Zichrono Livracha. He passed away. He passed away about a year or two ago. He gave me a small little Netilat Yadayim cup when my son was born, and he says, "This is for your son." Right? It was like a nice silver thing, and he'll wash his hands. I remember that very fondly of him, and that's what the Kaf HaChaim says, or to make sure your children wash. And they're no different. They're human beings. They're getting up. They have tumah in their hands, and they should, whatever age that they're able. Certainly by the age of chinuch, certainly they should be washing their hands in the morning. When they're born? Okay, yeah. That's right. He told me from again after Brit Milah. Oh yeah? Okay. Yeah, good. Hazak.
Every morning?
When we come to
Wow.
when we come to pray, and it's very clear communities, we usually during the prayer we shake hands, kiss each other before Amidah, for example. And I'm pretty sure in most of the communities there is at least one person who is not worshiping.
Yeah, that's a good question. I shake hands with everybody coming into shul.
But we did say that most people wash their hands in the faucet. Like who does it?
Does that take away the Ruach Ra'ah?
It probably won't take up the Ruach Ra'ah, but it would be enough to fulfill the obligation. I think what Amram saying is right. And most people are there washing their hands and their face in the morning. We're actually part of the further iyun. The main discussion of the iyun that we're going to see today is, to further your question, how can you buy any food in a supermarket? You go to a bakery. Okay, it's kosher, but maybe the person didn't wash his hands, and here he is making your bread. So is that a problem? Is that a problem? Especially that one of the things that the Gemara omitted was touching beer. If a person that touches beer with his hands should be cut off. Remember, I said eyes and nose. So beer, okay, that's one of the things. So does that mean that any food? Well, what happened to the food that's touched? So we're going to get to that in the further iyun.
I may have missed this because I was obviously a little late, but if you, when you wake up, you wash your hands, do you need to touch your dime? Rather than wipe my face, do I have to dry? I'm going to wash my hands again to wipe. Like, you wash your hands and touch your dime, right? Is it okay then to use that water, let's say, to wake yourself up? Or?
So I don't know if we're going to get to it today. Definitely the water that actually touched your hands needs to be discarded, guaranteed. Yeah, you can't use that water at all. That's like the 10 makot water or wine that we pour on the night of Pesach. That's very impure water and needs to be discarded.
Was that the third time?
Dipping their feet? Okay,
We'll talk about that later.
talk that another time.
That's good.
Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah, where he says Gimel Pamim. Even if you pour a lot of water at one shot, it's not good. It's not going to help. The Ruach Ra'ah only departs after 3 times. So here he tells us it's got to be right, left, right, left, right, left. In the book Maaseh Rav, it writes 4 times. Gimel Pamim la'avir Ruach Ra'ah, 3 times to get rid of the Ruach Ra'ah. Ve'adaled ha'revi'i la'avir ha'mayim shenitmeu, to pass the water which has been defiled. Okay, that's not how we follow though. Now, with regards to the revi'it required, he says en tzarich retzono lomar di'avad en me'akev ha'bracha u'mevarech al netilat yadayim. Okay, that the absence of a revi'it does not prevent the person from saying the bracha. Aval lechatchila tov la'akpid sheyeh lo gam ken revi'it. Lechatchila, a person should make sure that he has a revi'it of water, and I think most people do. Especially if they're washing their cup. Eno me'akev. It's no lomar again di'avad le'inyan bracha. This again with regards to the blessing. Yuchal levarech al netilat yadayim. You could say the bracha netilat yadayim. Or afilu lechatchila. Even lechatchila hechadi efshar be'inyan acher, where it's impossible where you're in a space where there's very little water, as long as you have a little bit. But if you are in a place where you could be where you have lots of water available, then we should be makpid. Okay, fine. So let's fast forward to 51, if you guys don't mind. Now the beginning of it is a little bit of a review of what we did, but then it really gets to the crux of it. So does anybody want to read it, or you want me to read it? I'm cool with someone wanting to read. Okay, fine. I'm getting people pointing at me. Fine.
Vote on it.
Especially for our listeners,
Yeah.
definitely.
Vote on
And
it.
I guess I'm directly in front of the microphone, so it makes most sense. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Teleprompters.
So again, there's a section here in Tzurba Mirabanan that's further iyun, which talks about the status of food touched by a person who did not perform Netilat Yadayim in the morning. And let's give Kavod B'Shem Omro. Rav Udi El-Haddad is the person that put this together. Upon waking up in the morning, the halakha dictates that a person must wash his hands. 3 different explanations are given in the halachic sources for this obligation. According to the Rosh, the reason is that one's hands are askaniyot, they touch many things. Washing hands is therefore necessary to ensure that they are clean in preparation for tefillah. The Rashba opines that hand washing is part of our thanks to Hashem for reviving us each morning, and the bracha recited with it forms part of the Birkot HaShachar. The third reason mentioned is due to Ruach Ra'ah, a type of impurity that needs to be removed from one's hands in the morning after sleeping. This essay focuses on the third reason of Ruach Ra'ah and its halachic ramifications regarding food that has been handled by unwashed hands. Let us begin by studying the Gemara Masechet Shabbat. Okay, we already recited this Gemara that says a hand that touches its eye should be severed because it harms the eye. A hand that touches the nose should be severed. A hand that touches the mouth should be severed. A hand that touches the ear should be severed. A hand that touches one's wound should be severed. A hand that touches one's member should be severed, lest one arouse himself. A hand that touches one's anus should be severed, lest one make himself ill. A hand that places into a barrel of beer should be severed because the beer will not ferment. A hand that frequently touches the eye causes blindness. A hand that frequently touches the ear causes deafness. A hand that touches the nose or mouth causes polyps. Rashi explains that Rav Muna's statements refer to hands that touch the various surfaces mentioned before one performs Netilat Yadayim in the morning. This is due to the Ruach Ra'ah that is present on one's hand before they have been washed. Rashi suggests that this reason applies to 6 of the 8 cases mentioned in the list, but touching concealed areas of the body, that is the member and the anus, is problematic for other reasons. Rashi therefore includes the problem of putting one's hand in a barrel of beer as being due to Ruach Ra'ah as well. It would seem then that the concern of Ruach Ra'ah would apply to touching any food before performing Netilat Yadayim in the morning. Okay, because it's one of the items that are listed in that Gemara. However, the Piskei HaRosh only mentions the case of touching various limbs of the body as being problematic. The Kurban Netanel explains that according to the Rosh, the cases of touching concealed areas of the body and putting one's hands in beer barrel would be problematic even after performing Netilat Yadayim, since touching concealed areas may cause arousal and putting one's hand in beer ruins the beer. In other words, according to the Rosh, it makes no difference whether you wash or don't wash. Touching beer is bad, period. Touching those parts of the body is bad, period, even after you wash. If so, then the case of touching beer is not related to the problem of Ruach Ra'ah. A possible ramification of this difference of opinion between Rashi and the Rosh may relate to the case of touching other foods without performing Netilat Yadayim. According to Rashi, it's problematic to touch any foods prior to Netilat Yadayim in the morning, whereas according to the Rosh, the Gemara never links Netilat Yadayim and refraining from touching food. There may be a special concern regarding beer, but the Ruach Ra'ah generally has no effect on food. So Machloket, Rashi, and Rosh on whether or not other foods are included in this. Rashi would say, yes, you cannot touch any food, and the Rosh would say, no, it really only applies to beer. This apparent dispute between Rashi and the Rosh may also be the basis of a dispute between Rashi and Tosfot in other Talmudic passages. The Gemara discusses whether a person who holds bread and eats it must perform Netilat Yadayim prior to eating bread, or even one who feeds bread to another by placing it directly into their mouth must also perform Netilat Yadayim. Within this discussion, the Gemara quotes the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel that a mother may wash one hand on Yom Kippur, but not two, in order to feed her child, which indicates that even someone feeding another must wash hands. But Abaye responds that this is not a proof, as there the problem is due to Shivta. Rashi, which is, I think, a form of sickness. Rashi explains that Shivta is the Ruach Ra'ah, yes, Ruach Ra'ah that rests on the hands before one performs Netilat Yadayim and must be removed even before feeding someone else. Tosafot, however, quotes Rabbeinu Tam, who interprets the Gemara differently. According to Rabbeinu Tam, Shivta here does not refer to Ruach Ra'ah that rests on one's hands before Netilat Yadayim. It refers to a special Ruach Ra'ah found on food, which is specifically harmful to young children. Due to this, a mother is permitted to wash one hand in order to feed her child. Tosafot conclude that nowadays we are not particular about this type of Ruach Ra'ah is no longer extant. The Ran also explains the Gemara in similar fashion to Tosafot. We're going to see why this is actually not in existence anymore. We're going to see it when we go back to the actual sources. Okay, where am I? 53. According to Rashi, in this sugya it would seem problematic to touch food before washing Netilat Yadayim in the morning because of the Ruach Ra'ah on one's hands. Tosot and the Ran, on the other hand, may hold that the problem is unrelated to Ruach Ra'ah and there would not appear to be any problem with touching food before performing the morning Netilat Yadayim. It is possible that Tosfot and Ran argue with Rashi in Shabbat as well and hold that even touching beer is not a problem of Ruach Ra'ah. Alternatively, Rabbeinu Tam and the Ran may agree with Rashi that touching food is problematic, but highlight that even if one did perform the morning Netilat Yadayim, there is a problem of feeding children unless one washes first. Okay, so that was a Shakla V'Tarya about Ruach Ra'ah and where it might affect. Now, I love the second part of this, which is we're going to read now, which will eventually come and answer our question on whether or not you can eat food that was touched by hands that weren't washed. The Zohar presents a deeper understanding of the nature of this Ruach Ra'ah. He quotes, there is no one that does not have a taste of death when going to sleep at night. An impurity hovers over the body. What is the reason? For the holy neshama leaves the body, and hence the spirit of impurity envelops the body. When the neshama returns, this impurity dissipates but remains on one's hands until one washes the hands in the correct manner. Then one is sanctified and called holy. That's what the Zohar says. This explanation of the Zohar leads to some practical halachic ramifications, as we will see further on. The Tur, following his father's opinion, the Tur is not concerned about touching foods before Netilat Yadayim. Tur's father was a Rosh. His only concern relates to touching one's body with unwashed hands. The Bet Yosef offers the following reason why the Tur did not follow Rashi's explanation, which seems to be the more straightforward interpretation of the Gemara. He suggests that since we see there are definitely things in the list mentioned that are problematic to touch and are not connected to Ruach Ra'ah, such as concealed areas of the body, this implies that there could be other things mentioned in the list that are problematic to touch for reasons other than Ruach Ra'ah as well. The Shulchan Aruch only mentions the problem of touching certain body parts before Netilat Yadayim. He does not mention the problem of touching beer, but only as a separate halacha because it ruins the beer, implying that it's not connected to Ruach Ra'ah. The Taz, a commentary on Shulchan Aruch, on the other hand, brings proofs for Rashi's opinion. He questions the Bet Yosef as follows. Is it logical that the sages would say that one's hand should be lost just because he ruins the beer? He opines that the Tur did not mention the case of the beer because it is uncommon, but he does not necessarily disagree with Rashi. The Taz writes that this was also the opinion of his father-in-law, the Bach. The Gra also argues with the explanation of the Bet Yosef, siding with the Taz and the Bach. We have seen so far that the primary point of the dispute is whether we rule like Rashi that Ruach Ra'ah does exist regarding foods, or like the other Rishonim. The later Achronim also discuss how to rule practically concerning coming in contact with foods prior to Netilat Yadayim and what to do with foods that were touched. And here we see modern day poskim now. The Mishnah Berurah writes, one should warn the women that they too must be careful to perform Netilat Yadayim 3 times, just like the men. In addition, they prepare food, which we do not want them to render impure. One should also be careful that children perform Netilat Yadayim in the morning, since they touch food. But we need not concern ourselves with Gentiles touching food without washing their hands, as they do not impart impurity. Those are the words of the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah continues that if one did touch food, one does not need to prohibit the food, but one must be careful lechatchila not to touch it. If one touched food before performing Netilat Yadayim, one must wash it 3 times. That's the food. One possible understanding of the Mishnah Berurah is that, in his opinion, although the Shulchan Aruch does not rule like Rashi, he felt one should accommodate Rashi's opinion at least lechatchila. Another possibility is that aside from following Rashi, there's another reason to be machmir, as we will see. Let's look at the Kabbalistic rulings, as you will see, mostly these Faradim. The Arizal writes that through this correct intent when performing Netilat, the spirit of the impurity known as the Shiftah flies away. But without that, it does not leave, and this is found in the Zohar. The Arizal bases his understanding of Netilat Yadayim upon the Zohar and Kabbalah. Indeed, many poskim that often follow the Kabbalistic approach, such as the Ben Ish Chai, rule that one must be careful not to touch food before washing one's hands. The Ben Ish Chai even rules that if one did touch food with unwashed hands, one cannot wash it off clean, such as liquid, it must be thrown away. Similarly, Shulchan Aruch Harav, that's Rav Liadi, rules stringently based upon the understanding of the Zohar. He is lenient, though, regarding children who have not yet reached the age of chinuch, based on a Kabbalistic understanding of Ruach Ra'ah. The Kaf HaChaim also writes, one must be careful not to touch food. If one did, the food is permitted, but a God-fearing individual should be stringent. Furthermore, the Kaf HaChaim cites a Solet Belula, who states, it is stated that Ruach Ra'ah causes blindness and deafness to one who touches eyes or ears, and although this is not noticeable, the meaning is that one who touches his eyes without washing becomes blind or deaf on the day to the words of Torah. He won't understand the Torah, won't see the Torah in the way that's supposed to be seen. The Shla is also quoted as saying that foods touched by someone who has not performed Netilat Yadayim causes timtum alev, obstruction of the heart, and causes people to stumble and sin. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch even compares these foods to other biblically prohibited foods. Other poskim, the tzitz says Eliezer of Eliezer Waldenberg, hold that there is no need to be concerned about foods that touch before Netilat Yadayim, even lechatchila, since Ruach Ra'ah does not apply in today's times. We'll see again why that is. He bases his approach upon the Maharshal, who writes that the laws of Ruach Ra'ah do not apply anymore. Returning to the question of the position of Mishnah Berurah, perhaps the Mishnah Berurah stringency was designed to take into account the opinions of the Kabbalists. In fact, there's an interesting debate among the poskim in general, how the opinions of the Zohar and the Kabbalah are viewed in the context of Psak Halacha. This is very important. Where there is a dispute between the Talmud and the Zohar, the Halacha generally follows the Talmud. Different explanations have been given for this. The Divrei Yativ explains that the Zohar is comparable to a bat kol, a voice from heaven or prophecy. But the halacha was given to the Chachamim of Israel to decide, and lo b'shamayim it is not in heaven. The Chacham Tzvi posits that we do not generally rule like the Zohar in such cases, as the reasons behind the rulings are hidden and mysterious. If we would do so, many people would interpret them incorrectly, and terrible tragedies may occur. He's alluding to the Shabtai Tzvi. Lastly, Rav Ovadia Yosef rules regarding uprooting a corpse for reburial in Israel as follows. Even though the Zohar states otherwise, we only follow the Talmud, Poskim, and Shulchan Aruch. Even though many Sephardi Kabbalists follow the Zohar, they have stated in practical matters we rule according to the Gemara. Rav Ovadia Hadayam, on the other hand, quotes Rav Chaim Palachi, who implies that in cases of conflict between Zohar and Shulchan Aruch, we follow the Zohar. Based on this, we could suggest that the Mishnah Berurah was concerned on a lechatchila level for the opinion of the Arizal and the Kabbalistic approach. Concerning the practical halacha, in cases where food was touched by someone who had not performed Netilat Yadayim, even many of the poskim that often lead toward Kabbalistic approach are lenient when buying from stores and bakeries. This is because, besides the fact that many poskim are lenient lechatchila, most people today do wash their hands in the morning, even if not with a utensil. The poskim rule that this might be enough to weaken the negative effects of Ruach Ra'ah. Hence, even the Kabbalists would permit eating. May Hashem guide us that there should be no takala bi'adenu, no obstacle brought about through our hands or actions. All right, so that was the further iyun. I thought it was really well done. Any questions on that? No? Okay. A lot of stuff. Feel free to read it later and dissect it and look it over. But I thought that was great. Okay. So we got to wake up. We got to do Netilat Yadayim right when we wake up to get rid of the Ruach Ra'ah, even though, again, the bracha should be really postponed, if possible, to till before tefillah. When do I need to do it? I wake up. At what point? You might have heard some people keep a bucket of water next to a pail next to their bed. Is that something that we need to do or not? This is the topic of the next section on page number 40. The first source number 19, is the Bach. Katav b'sefer Tolat Yaakov de bezohar ita. It's written in the Zohar, very, very famous Zohar, quoted often. Ha'olech shachrit arba amot v'lo natal yadav chayav mita. A person that walks 4 amot in the morning and does not wash his hands, hayav mita, is liable to death. This is what scares everybody, and therefore this Zohar, which is the source of people keeping a kli with water. Vetema, we said I have a problem with this. Lama lo katav ken Bet Yosef. Why is the Bet Yosef, again written Rav Yosef Karo, why does he not write this? Venire, it must be delefi deruba eno yecholim lizayer bekach. It must be because the vast majority of people cannot keep this. Umutav shiyu shogegin velo yu mezidin. Better that people transgress it beshogeg, in error, rather consciously. Lachen lo katfu. He didn't want to write it as a halacha. Umiyad, says the Mishnah Berurah, umiyad keshitorer. When a person wakes up mishinato, from his sleep, ve'eno rotzeh lishan, he doesn't want to sleep anymore, yitol yadav, he should wash his hands, af shenishar mushkav, even though he's still lying down. It's very difficult to do. I think this Mishnah Berurah a little bit hard to understand. Maybe it means lying down on the side. It could be that's what he's referring. Certainly not on your back. That would make a big mess. Okay? But yeah, not even to get up and take 1 amma. He's saying to do it from bed. All the more so, not to walk 4 amot without netilat yadayim. You have to be very careful with this. Let's just finish the source and we'll get the question. Zohar HaKadosh is very extreme about this punishment because you're allowing the impure spirit to dwell and remain on you. This is another very famous Mishnah Berurah psak. Many people hold that your whole house is akin to 4 amot, and it's like one reshut yachid, and therefore you could rely on walking to the kitchen sink or to the bathroom, even though you haven't washed your hands. But even so, don't rely on this unless it's Shat Chag. So even here, you can see that Mishnah Berurah, not known often for his Kabbalistic interpretations of things, when it comes to Netilat Yadayim, he seemed to go in full force in his Kabbalistic approach. Yeah.
So the Rush, when he didn't care for any of this stuff, no? Or was he talking about a separate thing?
He just said that the reason for Netilat Yadayim is
the reason in the Gemara
is yes, because you have this. You wake up in the morning, you gotta wash your hands. Your hands are askaniot. They're touching parts of your body.
And the source of Shabbat, he said that's nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it says. Yeah.
So like he's not. So why can't the Bet Yosef go like him? Like why?
So you're saying why is the Bet Yosef not whole
Why
idea?
is that the only answer? Because I'm saying that's.
Okay, that's his interpretation. That's the Bach's interpretation. Again, the Bach is a perush on the Bet Yosef. That's why he's asking on the Bet Yosef. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I hear that. You remember when the Bet Yosef writes something and then again codifies Shulchan Aruch, he knows he's writing it for the large population, he doesn't write the 4 amot. It's just quoted by the Mishnah Berurah, the Zohar, right? Because he probably knows a lot of people can't keep. By the way, it's not so far fetched. It's not so far fetched. We see today, letzarenu, a lot of halachot that have seemed to like disappear in the wind because a lot of people can't. I spoke of one recently in Seudat Shishit, if you guys remember. We have a big Seudat Shishit crowd over here. So one of the things we spoke about is saying Kriyat Shema in front of an erva. Person cannot say Shema in front of an erva. And one of the things defined as an erva is a woman who has her hair uncovered, right? And if you remember, we quoted the Aruch HaShulchan, who lived at the time of the Mishnah Berurah, who said, because many people don't cover their hair today, and it's not considered as such as an erva, you can read Shema in front of a woman whose hair is uncovered. Okay, so we see like that's we see a lot of halachot that over time have been watered down. Again, he only says it with regards to the hair. It doesn't talk about other parts of the body, but just because a lot of women don't cover their hair, and therefore, so to say something knowing that a lot of people are not going to keep it is very difficult. And if you notice if you listen to poskim online and rabbis who take a very, very strict approach, often people get turned off. They get turned off from it because they're calling the Zohar. Anybody can get up online and start saying you wake up and you walk for amot washing your hand, hayab mitah. Oh, you're going to do the guy. Well, here's you have a guy, Baal Tshuva, is trying to come back closer to religion, right? The first thing you tell him is you got to wake up, you got to wash your hands. Oh, by the way, you take 4 steps and you're dying. What's this guy going to do, right? So yes, there's a concept of Zohar, which we're going to talk about soon, but on why maybe this was nullified a little bit. But again, you have to be practical, and I think maybe that's why the Bet Yosef, or why the Bach feels the Bet Yosef left it out. Now, source 21 here, I think is the name of Avigdor Nebenthal, quoting his Rav, which is Rosh Zalman. He says, I heard Shama me'arav, shemasoret me'agra, me'az is a very famous masoret, she'me'az shenisraf al kiddush Hashem ger hatzedek Rav Avraham ben Avraham Pototsky, batla haruach ra'ah Yadayim. There's a very famous pshat of the Gra. The Vilna Gaon says there was this big tzaddik, Rav Avraham ben Avraham, who was burned at the stake. He refused to give in to worship, do any avodah zarah, and this famous Avraham ben Avraham. And when the moment that happened, it brought such a kedusha to the world. The Vilna Gaon said that the Ruach Ra'ah was removed, no longer exists. The Ruach Ra'ah that we have in our hands no longer exists. It's a very famous psak of the Vilna Gaon. The Hainu, however, this is what I was referring to before. However, the Hainu rak le'inyan dvarim shemekora me'azohar. It's only matters in which the Zohar said, "Velo legabe dvarim animseim b'Gemara," but not if something was sourced in the Gemara. Kengon de'en tzarich le'akpid shelo yelech daled amot kodem netilat. And he give an example. You don't need to be makpid to wash your hands before you take four amot. The mekoro me'azohar, because that mekor is from the Zohar. That's nullified. That no longer exists because of the mesirut nefesh and self-sacrifice of this man. Velo midina Gemara, but and it's not a Gemara ruling. So if it was a Gemara ruling, you can't nullify. Nothing can nullify it. But if it was from the Zohar, it can. It can. Says Rav Ovadia in source 22. Not Rav Ovadia. Yakut Yosef is his son, Yitzchak Yosef, but all of his psaks are from his father. Someone wakes up in the morning. He can get dressed. He can touch his clothing before he washes his hands. You have to worry about the Ruach Ra'ah on your hands. You can go to the bathroom, go do number 2, relieve yourself. Before washing, get dressed. Right? So look how far he's going, because also this just came to my mind. Right? You hope your hands don't touch your anus, but your anus is one of the things that were mentioned in that Gemara, that your hands should be cut off before you wash up your hands. So I still would hope that a person is careful not to touch that part of the body. But based on the iyun that we learn, it not necessarily does it mean that washing the hands. It could be just detrimental physically in general, any time of the day, to touch that part of the body. Anyways, according to Ovadia, don't worry about Ruach Ra'ah. Get up. Go to the bathroom, get dressed, and wash your hands afterwards. Now, even with that, there are certain people, mitchasadim, that act with a certain level of piety, and they're strict, and they put next to their bed a kli with water. They wash their hands, and only then they get dressed. ותבוא עליהם ברכה. This is what he said. חזר וברוך. You get a bracha for doing so. ואם מרגיש שצריך מאוד לנקבה, now it could be that you have to really go to the bathroom. Okay? אין לו להחמיר על עצמו ולעשות על שייטול ידיו. Don't be מחמיר on yourself and wait to go to the bathroom until you wash your hands. אלא יפנה קודם שייטול ידיו. Go to the bathroom and then wash. כדי שלא יעבור על איסור בל תשקצו. If a person really has to go to the bathroom, he's keeping his body in a degrading state, in a disgusting state, because you need to relieve yourself. And a person not going to the bathroom can be transgressing בל תשקצו. Do not make yourself detestable. אך ייזהר שלא ייגע באיבריו עד שייטול ידיו. But should take care not to touch any of your members or your outlets, what he translates here, until he washes your hands, any more than necessary. Okay, so that is the section of the Netilat Yadayim next to your bed. If you want to be Hasid, Chazal Baruch, Tavo ala bracha, but it is not necessarily, mainly because we're not so worried about the Ruach Ra'ah today. Not so worried about Ruach Ra'ah. So the question might be why we wash with three times. I think it just became standard practice. And to fulfill those people that hold that there still is Ruach Ra'ah, we just fulfill all opinions.
So we don't need to wash?
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Those are 3 times. It was the 3 times that gets rid of the Ruach
Right.
Ra'ah.
No, I'm saying but if we're not afraid of the Ruach Ra'ah, then we don't officially.
You still got to wash your hands in the morning,
Yeah.
whether it's
But if I go and just run my hands underwater, it's the same thing.
it's other Ruach Ra'ah.
Of the Zohar.
Yes.
The Ruach Ra'ah of the Gemara.
But it's a Zohar is the ones that's quoting this 4 Amot thing. So the rule of the 4 Amot could be nullified.
Right, but it seems like there's 2 Ruach Ra'ahs. One is the Zohar, one is the Gemara. Because he said the one of the Gemara stays. Right, that's what he said at the end. Right? Only
Yes,
Hazar.
that's right. So that's right. Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, the Zohar which added the rule of the 4 Amot can be yes. So it's interesting to understand what does that mean. So what does the Gra mean when he says it doesn't exist? Can something? I guess even the Ruach Ra'ah from the Talmud doesn't exist according to the Gra, right?
So if it doesn't exist, so we don't need to do Netilat Yadayim in the mornings now. I'm saying you can just go wash your hands. What's the difference?
No, sorry. The Ruach Ra'ah. Sorry, I take that back. The Ruach Ra'ah of the Gra doesn't exist. The Ruach Ra'ah of the
He said, Pirush had the more, the Hainu, Rakling, and Grim Quram, Zohar. He's explaining the Don Rebel now. So, in his opinion,
my only issue is the Zohar just added the rule of the 4 Amot. He's not saying there's a new Ruach Ra'ah. So what is the interpretation of the Vilna Gaon here? I think I'm on the other understanding that the Ruach Ra'ah doesn't exist after this happened. Now again, not everybody holds of this, and it could be that's why we still wash our hands 3 times. But it's Arich Iyun. We'd have to look into that more. Good point.
I find the concept of if you have to go to the bathroom, it says go to the bathroom, but then you have to make sure then not to touch, get up, go wash, and then do what you need to do. That's a crazy amount of hoops to be going through. I find
You're not washing it to start. You're going to the bathroom.
It says don't degrade it. Like it says go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Don't even wash your hands. But then once, let's say you go to the bathroom, don't then clean up. Go wash your hands and then go back to clean up. That's crazy.
No, that's not what it said.
Oh, that's what I.
No, that's not what it said. That's not what it said. No. You clean up. You do your cleaning.
But then you touch.
Okay, don't worry. You do your cleaning. Don't worry about it.
Because you can't touch your.
No.
Oh, okay. That's why I was like, okay.
You shouldn't touch that area even in a regular part of the day, right? You're touching it with a medium. There's a medium there. In the old days, it was a stone. Nowadays, it's paper. And or you're lucky you have water and you have a bidet that's right.
That's for
the fancy people.
Crowd, yeah.
But you shouldn't be touching that area, period. Right? It's especially according to those posting that we learned in the Iyun section. All right, let's answer your question, Josh. I'd like to finish this Shiur today, Bezat. So Josh asked, what do I do with the water after I wash my hands? Can I use it to wash my face? So that is the subject of where to dispose water from Netilat Yadayim. The Bet Yosef says, "V'chen katuv b'sefer HaZohar, v'lo be'ayen inun miyen dezuma le'ushta bebeita, de'lo yikra behu bar nas דהה מתקן של סיטרא דלהון ויכול לקבלה נזקין מעילוי מיין מסאבים. Okay, I'm just going to read the translation since that was all in Aramaic. And they must not spill these defiled waters in the house, so that no person will come close to them. For in these waters collects their side of impurity, which are the destructive forces, and a person might be harmed from these impure waters. Okay, good. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Netilat Yadayim Shachrit en notrim al gabe karka. You do not pour this water on the floor of your house. Ela letoch kli. You do it inside a vessel. Mayim shel netilat yadayim shachrit. Waters in the morning. Asur le'anot mehem. You can have no benefit from them. Don't feed your plants with this water. Velo yishpechem babayit, or pour them in your house. Velo b'makom shovrim sham bnei adam, or let people walk over it. You can't even say Kaf HaChaim says you can't even say a bracha next to these waters. However, if a person he has a chidush, if a person takes a revi'it of water, of kosher water, good water, and pours it in, the water is good now.
But it has to be reviewed in one shot.
That's
That's similar to if you made
No, it's good.
I was just thinking if that, like, let's say you have the wine or the grape juice from Kiddush.
Yes,
Right, so it's a similar.
Same idea. Yeah. So if you pour clean water into the dirty, impure water, you now have good water again. Yeah.
How come we cannot make bracha next to the water? Because in the morning, let's say the bucket is next to the bed, and we do it then we directly have to do bracha.
So not necessarily. So last week we actually learned that it's preferable to say a bracha closer to shachrit, to wash your hands again before shachrit say. But in that situation, if you didn't plan on, especially if you didn't go to the bathroom yet, because often people go to the bathroom after this and they have to wash their hands again. So you just turn away and not face the water. Then that's what you're referring to.
So you dry your
Says the Yakut Yosef.
So you dry your hands and then rewash them. Basically, is what it is.
But yeah.
So you wash, dry, and then wash again and wash your face.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I do my Netilat Yadayim.
Yeah.
Dry my hands and then.
Don't use that water. Don't use that water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does the towel become? Towel doesn't become a problem.
No. Tell us when. Okay.
So when should we make the bracha then?
So if a person plans on going to the bathroom again later on,
No. Sorry.
or like let's say he washes his hands in the morning,
Yeah, you wash your hands in the morning.
and then he's not going to shul for another hour.
Exactly.
According to the poskim we read last week, a person should say the bracha, wash his hands and say the bracha closest. No, not even. Sorry, he didn't have to wash his hand. He should say the bracha closest to tefillah as possible. That's why the Ashkenazim, right?
That's what
They do without washing.
So that means in shul before shachrit you do it without washing.
Yeah. But we quoted last week. We quoted last week that it was the custom of Sfaradim to do all the Bikot HaShachar at home, and therefore you kind of do it like right away. That's what we said last week.
Right.
Wait, see, that was about to be my question.
Yes.
Yeah, because that.
But is there any inyan to wash on the Netilat before tefillah if you've already done it at home, just because of askaniot maybe, or just? Is there any inyan like that? So you've already done the Netilat at home, you've done the bracha.
Yeah, and then your hands touch the place.
Yeah.
No, you don't even know. Like you go to learn for an hour and then shachrit's an hour later.
That's why we wash our hands before Mincha and Arvi too. It's without bracha,
so
but
but there's no bracha
yeah,
there.
yes.
I think that's what it is.
But it's better to do the brachot to the brachot, the Birkot HaShachar at home instead of like, because from what you can understand is come to shul, then say it, and then before you put on your tefillin.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish this. Says Yakut Yosef, En litol yadav shachrit al gabei karka. Person shouldn't wash his hands on the ground. Bimkom shanashim ovim v'shavim sham. V'achen yesh lazhir et odam ha'yeshenim b'sukkah. He says, you're in the sukkah on Sukkot. She'osim b'chatzar beitam. Shelo yitru et yedem ala karka. Bimkom shanashim malachim al hamayim. Wash your hands on the sukkah floor. People are walking there. Gotta be careful. Nevertheless, if you did so, your washing still counts. Your washing is still good. Oh, they said that. A person should not wash his hands upon dishes. Because now this evil spirit is going to sit on the dishes. You have to now wash the dishes well. Nevertheless, you nekuvot shelanu kiyor. It's good and proper to wash your hands in the sink. V'tov nachon lishtof et hakiyor achar netilah, but always best to rinse the sink afterwards. V'ter mishtamshu bo l'shivat perot v'adecha b'kli seudah, before you use it for your dishes or other fruits might be touching it. The Piskei Teshuvot here is also repeats the same thing. I won't read it inside. Be careful not to pour the water into the sink where there's your forks and knives are there, because that's not good. There's just one page left, and we're just going to do it so we can officially finish the shiur, which regards to women and Netilat Yadayim. Mishnah Berurah here says, women need to wash their hands 3 times, alternatively, just like men. We quoted this Mishnah Berurah in the Iyun section because they're touching foods. And also children. Yaakov Yosef here says, is not a biblical mitzvah that is time bound. They should also say a bracha before they dry their hands. And if they didn't do so, they can say the bracha with all the birkot hashachar, but they should try to say it as close as possible to the washing. The last thing from the Pnei Halacha, Rav Eliezer Melamed, which we learned every Shabbat here at the Kehila Center. He says, Horim, very great halacha, very important halacha. Horim akamim mishnatam be'emsa halayla. Parents who wake up in the middle of the night, kedei lechasot et benam o latet motzatz befiv. They wake up to cover their child or to put the pacifier in the mouth. All right, so that's 3 a.m, your kid's crying, you want to put the pacifier in the mouth. You didn't wash your hands, you were just sleeping for 5 hours. They don't need to wash their hands before putting the pacifier in the mouth. Because it does not require touching the child's mouth or any other bodily orifice. But your baby's crying. I know you can prepare formula.
Diaper change.
Right? Oh, diaper change. It is proper for them to wash their hands in order not to touch food, or parts of the body that were listed in that Gemara with your hands not washed. Also, a woman who wakes up to nurse her child, it is best for her to wash her hands. But if it's very difficult for her to do so, she can rely on the lenient opinions which don't require her to do so. But nevertheless, according to all opinions, you never say a bracha for the washing that you do in the middle of the night. You got up to change your son's diaper, you don't say a bracha, period. They only said, the rabbi said you say a bracha for the morning. Because that is the preparation for tefillah, like we learned last week, and in preparation for the new day.
What happens if you don't sleep? Like if you pull an all-nighter? That's always my.
That's a good one.
So I say modani. Do I say?
You still wash your hands. You still wash your hands, but no bracha.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You say modani?
What?
You say modani or no?
No, you don't say modani.
So you don't say modani. You wash your hands. You don't say the bracha.
You try.
You say Asher Yatzar.
You say if you went to the bathroom, you say Asher Yatzar.
You do the bracha.
Most people say do the entire birkot hashachar. Okay, everybody. Chazal Baruch. Thanks for coming. We'll see you. We'll see you next time.
Where do I get one of these? This is all.